Rehana is one of my superheroes because for a black woman, especially a black immigrant woman, one of the best things you can have is a safe space where you can just be yourself, where you can just go and kick your legs up and just relax. And so the first time I came across When African Women Talk by the community run by Rehana, I was just like, gosh, like this is so good. It's so good for many reasons. And so I had to get her on the podcast. Yeah, because I was like, come tell me about why did you start this? And her motivations is so beautiful because I love how it evolved from I wanted to show that we had a lot of African queens to let's build a space where we can just go and be safe and heal. If you're in Edmonton, go join When African Women Talk. And if they go across Canada, join them. But for now, let's listen to her story. You've been here for 15, 16 years. 2010 is quite a while. And I think the question is, how do you see yourself now different? Are you different? Are you the same person?
Oh, wow. So my niece was 3 months old when I moved to Canada, and she's 16 now with opinions, has her own life going on, and that's my immigration age. So I've evolved as she's evolved. I've literally evolved. I was still a baby when I came here, very lost, needing people. So we'll literally use her life as our metaphor to explain my immigration age, needing people. And then I was in the toddler stage, so then I could now catch the buses and use public transport, and was slowly getting to know people and socialize. And then in my toddler age, where now you're making friends, so you're slowly making friends. And then you get to that stage where you go to kindergarten. So, your workplace, your communities are your kindergarten, and you get to make friends. But then, some friends take your toys and they break them. And so you're learning those bonds, and you're learning to know who to trust and who not to trust. You're learning to find your own feet. You're learning to find your own voice. You're learning to express yourself as a Canadian too, because the language is different. There's different ways to express coffee, a cup of tea, or aluminum is called, I don't think, aluminium. We say aluminium in Zambia. It's aluminum here. Small words, route instead of roots. So, it's all those things as you express yourself. And so it's their language. So as you learn to talk, as she was learning to talk, I was learning to speak Canadian. And then as she grew up, now going into primary school, you're now learning and you're growing, and now she's in high school, and I'm about to graduate. I love that. I'm going to steal that.
It is. It is.
And literally, that's your immigration age. So when I meet newcomers and younger people in my work, I always tell them, sis, be patient. It changes, it evolves. New moms, new marriages. This metaphor can be applied to everyone. Everything starts in that baby stage, and we grow into it.
Yeah. And like they always say in Canada, I mean, this Canada says they see you as a newcomer for like 5 years, which makes sense. I mean, I feel like it should be longer though, because at 5, yes, we're adults when we come here and stuff like that. I mean, maybe the kids are different, but we're adults when we come here. But at 5, you're still not exactly sure of yourself. Yeah, you can do stuff. You've probably been potty trained. You can do all those stuff, but you still make mistakes. And so sometimes I feel like we should actually make it longer and say you're a newcomer for like 10 years, because I think the thing I find interesting about immigration is how people talk about the very obvious things. Oh, go get a house. You go try and get a job. But there's something you said about when you said language. Whenever I hear language, and I like how you described it, people think language is just learning how to talk. No, it's learning how to communicate and make sure you're understood. Because you're right, back home, it's not route means to route something up. Like route is a more violent word back home in Nigeria. It's like route, literally ROUT. But yes, so it's wild how much it affects us and shows up in how we communicate or act around other people. But we tend to just kind of push it on that and be like, oh, it's nothing. But I think it's a lot to deal with for anyone who reflects on their journey.
It does. I mean, when I think back of my own journey, immigrating to Canada, I just even think of my emotional, mental health stage. I mean, there's so many stages that you go into. You're an adult. I mean, I was 26, 27 when I moved here. And I think back and I look at 26-year-olds and 27-year-olds and I'm like, wow, I'm so compassionate to myself and my own journey. And I just think back and I think, wow, you were just, it's like being so lonely in this big bad place with so much opportunity, so much to achieve, so much, I feel as an immigrant, you can't come here to fail. You're not allowed to come here to fail. So there's this immense pressure to achieve, to get ahead. You need to buy your house within a certain amount of time. If you haven't yet, it's like, you guys haven't bought your house yet. There's this silent, very silent pressure about being an immigrant. And achieving and the success around being an immigrant because you didn't leave your home country to come here to live off welfare or live off the state or live off others. So yeah, that's immigration. And so 10 years I think would be a much better term for newcomers. It takes you 10 years to know a city. I believe that's what stats show, research shows is that it takes you 10 years to really know a city. You can drop me anywhere in the city of Edmonton and I can find my way home. I know my way around Edmonton. I'm one of those people that doesn't need a GPS to get from one place, but don't ask me about streets. I don't know the name. I know the name of, but you can't say I'm on 149 and 83. And so I'm like, you're talking jargon to me. I'm a landmark person. So if they change all the landmarks, then I will be lost. But like I've learned the city, I know how to move from one end to the other end. I know how to avoid construction and all those type of things. I worked for many years in outreach work, driving from one end of the city to the other, supporting, people where we worked. So yeah, I think 10 years is a good enough number. It's good enough for you to get settled because it's the different stages of being an immigrant, right?
Yeah.
There's your own personal journey, number one. There's the paperwork that nobody talks about, the paperwork of being an immigrant. So it's your banking, it's your all the paperwork. It's becoming a Canadian or becoming a permanent resident or whatever it is. And it's a different journey depending on what status you came here on.
Yeah.
And then it's the community, learning, getting to know who's your community and what that looks like. Then it's your school system if you have children, or even yourself if you're going to go to school. And then it's the career. Do you need to retrain? Do you need to go back and learn new skills? Or do you need to, it's so many journeys compacted into one. I think immigration, if you want anyone to grow up fast, immigration is the fastest tool to teach someone. So, Nigerians have a word called sabi.
Yeah.
There's no immigrant that no sabi anything. How's my pigeon? You have to be very sharp.
Yeah. You have
Yeah.
no choice, actually. You have no choice. And there's something you said earlier on, which is that pressure. There was an episode I published a week ago or so, 2 weeks ago, which I talk about with the person about how, as an immigrant, you always feel as if you're carrying the weight of your community on your shoulders because you have to represent. You're always, I don't know if it's good or bad, but we walk around with that burden of like,
As a black
as
immigrant?
especially as a black immigrant, especially like
Yes.
I
As a
have to,
black person from the diaspora,
yeah,
yes.
you have to live
you're-
up to my people. You're always defending
Yes.
their identity. You're always saying they're not bad people. And it always feels like you always have to be above board because I say to myself that there are always be bad people and good people. And not everybody's like that, but it always feels like you're just one thing away from being labeled as, oh yes, we knew that's who you guys are. We knew that's how you behave. And so you're always walking around with that and just trying to say to yourself, you know what? No, we are good. I'm just like, gosh, it's exhausting. Like
always in a defense mode.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always tell people I envy people that are darker skin toned, melanated, more melanated than myself because they never have to explain themselves as much as I do.
Oh damn, yeah.
In every room I go into, I'm asked, where are you from? Including my own country. And so there's being an immigrant and then there's being mixed.
Yeah.
Because you can stand up and say, I'm a Nigerian Igbo man, and that's it. Yeah. and so there's the layer of explaining. I got tired, so now I just say, yeah, I'm African, and I just don't go there. And people always tell me, you know so much about so many cultures and so many peoples and so many, because I've had to learn to represent so many people. So right there, what you're saying is like, you're not allowed to fail. You carry so much of the community. Yeah. I've had to learn so much about so many cultures because I realized that in so many rooms, I was the spokesperson for all Africans. Like, all my people. Literally. And I was so scared. I think I'm so scared to speak about other people's cultures so comfortably without understanding what the culture is, or labeling people, or putting people in a box. We're very, another thing, we're very good at playing the sympathetic card, like, oh, it's so bad. I've met so many Caucasian people, or non-African people who'll be like, oh, I didn't know Africa was so nice and so cool. And I'm like, okay, who you been talking to? And it's that same narrative, that same, like, where it's that so now I have this ownership to carry this ambassadorship to prove that the Africa that I'm from has well-educated, we're good people, we are honest, we have integrity, all the good things. And you're so right. It is, until you said it, I'm like, wow, it is a very, very big load that we carry.
Yeah.
And it's not just here, but even for our people at home.
Yes.
Is that, like, I'm a firstborn daughter, firstborn grandchild on both sides. So it's this constant representation that, I am the first, I need to do this because they're watching me, or I have to perform, right? So yeah, it's yeah, you're right. It's quite a lot.
Yeah. And that thing you talk about, I tell people that it's time we stop playing the victim. It's time. Like, just like that, I tell people, just stop it. And this is for every immigrant. Like, just stop it. Like, you're not a victim. I'm not saying that if someone's racist, you shouldn't call them out. But like, don't. It's not every single thing that you should adopt the. I'm a victim of this situation. Like, sometimes just be like, okay, you know what? That's what you think. I disagree with you. This is how it is. We have good and bad, just like the same way we have in certain places across the world, they're good and bad. Because we
You know,
always
it's so
we want
interesting you
pity.
say that because I hear that often from a lot of Nigerians. And I think there was a piece I saw recently, a reel of a man who was in a boardroom with predominantly non-black people. And in the boardroom, everybody went around introducing, and I think he heard someone saying, "Oh, the black guy," or the African, or however it sounded. And he stood up and he's like, "I am," because he explained he was from Edo or Benin, and he explained like, "I am this," and but he carried the full weight of the Benin kingdom on him, with full authority. I think the difference with other Africans that we don't have is compared to Nigerians is like, for example, being Zambian. We were so warped in that the only way to make decisions, the only way something is nice is that it must be white. It must be of the white man. It it's so embedded. It's quite interesting, and anything that resembles um, culture, like Africanness, is dirty. It's less than. So even like, people be like, "Oh, I'm a chief of whatever, chieftainship." It's only like Nigerians, you watch Nigerian movies and they be like, "Chief, chief, chief." When I was small, someone says, I never used to know that people were from royal families and people were chiefs and all. We never we never celebrated that. So we had headsmen. Imagine they even reduced them to headsmen. They were just called headsmen. They were never called in their full authority of kings. There are a few kingdoms that managed to maintain some of that, but it's not at the level of wealth and authority. Like how, in Nigeria, certain kingdoms, they're worth
Yeah.
like, one king can have the wealth of $40 million, and
Yeah.
I don't think some kingdoms in Zambia up to even $300,000, 100,000, the wealth of the king. That's how much our resources were removed from us. And we we were sent to, it's quite interesting. So I always tell people, because like my sister and I always have a argument around this, a debate, because she's like, "No, as she's like, we cannot play victim, we must do it, we must stop. Why do we have to always wait for people to like?" It drives us insane. She'll be like, "We're in a nice establishment and there my African sister walks in loud on the phone, 'My sister, how are you?' on the phone. Like, why must we always be the ones, the loudest and this should like." And I'll be like, it's exposure. It's, let's break it down. And it's even now in our conversations around what's going on in the political climate in the
Yeah.
world, and it's that anti-black racism. Like, for some people it's very easy depending on the country you're from. So like right now Burkina Faso has that amazing president who's pushing he's empowering his people. So those children, that the generations to come after
Will
that,
be much bolder.
they nobody's going to tell them nothing. They just produce their first electric car. Like, excuse me,
Yeah.
who are you? And so what? Yeah. But then others where in order for you to get a promotion, you had to wait for this other person to hand it to you. You had to wait. Everything was tokenized. There was only a place for one, always one white professor, one black professor, one black radio person, one. So there was only space for one. It was always the one where I was from. And so when you are so conscientized around that one. The rest of you, what do you do? Whereas in Nigeria, especially you being an Igbo man, one builds a big castle in the village. Somebody else is coming to build his big castle next door. Where we're from, one person builds a big castle. Dare you try build your big castle? They break it down for you. You know what I mean? I'm not articulating it the way I want it to, like how I see it in my head, but literally, we've been so conscientized in other parts of Africa to believe that we are not worthy enough to show up the way you got now. I love that. One thing, as much as people hate on social media and access to, the one thing I love is that it's given us the visual
Yeah.
representation of Black wealth and Black excellence that
Yes.
now I am seeing it. I've seen the ripple effects of that
Of
showing
course.
up in
Yes.
now even the way people in my country host birthday parties, baby showers, any form of celebration. You're now seeing that ripple effect of the West. I call it the West African effect. Like, we're now doing it. People are doing Ashwebi and Co. And seriously, we never used to do all those things, like, and you're seeing that. Like, people now have representation of how home should look like and affluence, and it wasn't like that before. If we're being very honest, I'm not saying all African countries apart from
Yeah.
Nigeria. I'm just saying, like, you'd go to a country like Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe had, for me, the richest Black people I've ever met in my life. Big, beautiful homes, long driveways, electric, like, till today, I've never been to an African country that had affluence apart from South Africa. But South Africa, there's a mixed bag which
Yeah.
have grown South Africa. So I can't fully, but with Zimbabwe, I've seen Black Zimbabweans grow, in that wealth. And, beautiful, big, houses, and they've grown in their careers, and solid people. The first Black billionaire in England is a Zimbabwean man. He grew a huge telecommunications company in Zimbabwe. And when you hear this man talk, his name is Strive Masiwa. If you ever Google
Yeah. I know
him,
Strive. Yeah. I know Strive. Yeah.
when you hear Strive speak, this guy speaks solid, like gumption. And that's the kind of fiber Zimbabwe had, that like brain power. So, yeah, so I understand what you're saying about playing the victim. I get it. I hear you. But at the same time,
Just there are cultural nuances to it.
people do feel that way because of their lived experiences, that they haven't been there are no opportunities, where you can see that you're in a job, you want to move to the next level, and you're past, they bring in some other guy who can't even do half the stuff you're doing, you're training that person. It's hard not to feel victimized. It's hard.
Yeah.
um Yeah, I just don't think they make them as strong as Nigerians.
Yeah, you praise us too much, honestly, because I mean, I hear you. I mean, I do think we
No, it's
have a
just,
ton
when you
of
live in
issues, but
Edmonton, it's one of the biggest communities when it comes to tertiary educated people that you're exposed to. So you
yeah.
do, and I've had a lot of experience with, so you get to see what's been done in that community. Yeah.
Just curious, like, is this part of the reasons why that drove you to build When African Women Talk?
Yeah, so when African Women Talk, for me, was that, again, that victim mentality that you hear around. I got tired of of comments like, "Oh my gosh, you speak such good English. Why shouldn't I? Go and learn about Southern Africa. It was colonized by the British for God knows how long.
Yeah.
Everybody speaks English. Like, the whole of Africa, except maybe how many countries don't speak English?
Yeah.
Like, it's a handful. Like, I'm tired of you not knowing about us as a people, and this is prior to, like, the big push of, like, social media. Now people have it in their face. It's there. everywhere. Like you can learn about so many different places. It's really up to you. But this is 2017, 16 was my experience of really getting out there, networking and mingling with other people. And in my experience it was just the same questions of, oh, you're so educated. Like it was like almost a surprise. And I realized that in Edmonton, and so for those who are very new to Alberta, for the longest, Alberta had different. So the first Black people to come out to Alberta, as we've learned, are people who came here to work on the farmland, and these people came from the States and other parts of like Nova Scotia, and these were the first Black people to come here. And then, so they're Black Canadians, their history. Some of them, they're descendants of slaves. They've got their history. So then we have the next influx of what is the group that came to work in the oil fields, and they came here as menial labor. So you had people from the Caribbean that were brought in, right? But over time, University of Alberta, and U of C, there was these streams of little educated Africans that were coming here to study his medicine and this and that. So you have your small pockets here and there.
Yeah.
And in the 70s, you had your small pockets of Africans, but very few families, like 4 or 5, the 80s, but kept together. So there's some people who've been here from when they were very young. I call them old Edmonton, old Alberta, And then you have people who started coming around like the early 90s, 2000s, especially like in the Zimbabwean, Kenyan community around that time. A lot of them were coming because of the political climate in different countries. Canada was open to them to come. So at one stage, you could just fly into Canada without needing a visa.
Interesting.
Right. And they settled here and things like that. So like my husband's family, they all came mostly during that time. They've been here for 20 something odd years, and a lot of them know one another. The kids knew each other. But even then at that time, I think there was also a lot of people that were flown, airdropped, what's the right terminal? I think they were flown in, the refugees. So from Sudan, from Rwanda. So Edmonton was a very big hub for refugees. And so during that time, so this is like, I think your early 2000s, late 90s, if you were African or Black here, you were a refugee. And even to the Caribbeans, if you were African, you were a refugee. So there's this like perception of, so there's those who are the refugees, and then there's the other Africans who are very educated, and then they look down. Like there's all these diaspora wars, that's going on.
Why do we do
But then
that,
these are
though?
the experiences that people had. And so I always tell people, don't be so quick to judge people's opinions of you and experience, because they know why. They've got their own biased experience or their lived experience of dealing with our people. And then there's the pocket, like now you see this huge influx of tertiary educated, Africans, and majority are all with the skilled labor, right? So they all have been to, majority have been to university and that type of thing. But then I got tired of people being surprised that we lived in houses like them. We didn't live on in low income housing, and we didn't. I love how you're laughing. I was at that time I was working at, I think, at the U of A, and people were like, huh? They couldn't, like, they're expecting, I don't know what job they're expecting me to say. Maybe I don't know. I'm like, I don't want to label any people's jobs, so it doesn't seem like I'm putting down someone. But like, yeah, that was my experience. And so I got tired of that. I'm like, guys, do you know that there's lawyers, there are doctors, but that's, even when I say that, that shouldn't take away from people who are doing great work as tradesmen. as in the different industries, but it's just that constant, like, if a Black person is a tradesperson, then they're lower than a white person who's a non-Black person. It's that type of thing, and you just get tired of it. And so I wanted to show that we bleed the same way you bleed. We have children the same way you have children. We have families the same. We love the same way. We celebrate Christmas the same way. We have celebrations. We enjoy the world. We enjoy sushi. We enjoy, So that was
I get you, honestly.
That was my mission to start When African Women Talk. Was at first wanted to show the world, Edmonton, Alberta, that Black people, Black women are powerful, amazing, phenomenal queens. And at first that was my mission. And then I realized that, whoa, we need one another. We, as Black queens here, are looking for one another. We have so much, there's so much, depending on your immigration age, when you came, where you came from. A lot of us there's a lot of stuff that has gone on that there's healing, there's a need for connection, a need for empowerment, there are people who came here with PhDs, master's degrees, and they're not even working in their potential. Why? They're people with such amazing skill sets that they've just put them on the side because they're now working 2-3 jobs that they don't even have time to enjoy their passion. Why? So that literally is that space of When African Talk is, how do we come together in sisterhood? How do we support one another? How do we help each other meet each other's needs? And then as it evolved, then this George Floyd happened, COVID happened, and then we realized that, sometimes you start something just because you need it, and then you realize, oh, it's got a huge political agenda, and then people start saying, oh, there's anti-racism and there's anti-Black racism. So all these words, we started learning about them. Before, we didn't have the language to express a lot of what we are going through. But as it's evolved, it's become this huge organization that has just provided a space for Black women to be seen, be amplified, and be celebrated, and now to thrive.
That's beautiful, to be honest.
Yeah.
If you think about the community itself, like, what do you think what's your most proudest moment about building that community? Because I have the things when I see them, I'm like, gosh, that's so good. But tell me, I want to know what's your most proudest moment of building that community?
I have too many. Proudest moment. I'll tell you, I don't know if I have one specific proud. I've never sat down to reflect on that, to be very honest. But I have moments like, for example, one of our sisters was in another city. Last week was her birthday. And then another sister who's part of the group has moved to that city. And I saw a video of the two of them having dinner together. And so on her birthday, she wasn't alone. She was with someone. It's things like that. Or you see a collaboration between people that were complete strangers that came into the group, wouldn't know one another, and over time they've gotten to see each other's work, and suddenly they're just creating this phenomenal engine, like it's I can't pinpoint. There are just so many. In each year, there's been just so many. I think for the first year, my proudest moment was to actually put together a room full of women to come and celebrate Black History Month. that was the first time we ever celebrated Black History Month. I think that was the first Black History Month event for African women in 2019. And now there's so many.
Yeah.
Now there's just so many. 2019, yeah. And then 2020, we hosted it again, and there was more women in the room.
Yeah.
But it was seeing women of different ages, whether you were in your 20s or you were 70. There's this sisterhood that exists. I think seeing that makes me very, very proud. Yeah, too many.
I think for me, as an outsider, I think what I find most beautiful about it is that, so you describe it as that healing, that safe space. I think that's what I find most beautiful about it. Because when I've met a couple of your members, Maroro, Cecilia, Viola, Cynthia, and anytime I talk to them about stuff, you just get that sense that what you've built is a safe space. Because, I say to people that it's an unpopular opinion, but unfortunately, there's the thing of dealing with being a Black immigrant, and there's a thing of dealing with being a Black woman. It's a reality.
Right.
And so I think what I enjoy the most about it all is just the fact that just a space where people can go be themselves.
Oh,
because
yes.
because people talk a lot about code switching. But I say that as an immigrant, we're stuck with code switching. It's just what it is. But what you need is not whether you code switch or not. What you need is a space where you can go and you don't have to worry about if you're behaving right. Because all the cultural nuances are caches are shared amongst you all, and you can just be yourself. No human being should have to live a life where they are always in that heightened state of awareness, where they are always trying to make sure, am I doing the right things? Because it probably takes you a long time for you to fully understand all the things that make you Canadian, where you cannot. I've been here 4 years and I still struggle with a ton of things, and so I always say, I always look forward to when I'm just with my friends, where I don't have to worry whether I said route or route. I just talk. I don't have to worry whether, do they understand what I just said? No, they do. And if they don't, they'll ask me. And it's such a little thing, but the effects on your life for me are so big. Just that space where you just go and just sit down and just stretch your legs and just be like, okay, yeah, I'm home. Because that's what you've built. You've built home.
I love that. It's amazing. I stopped code switching in 20. I can't even, I'm not in those spaces anymore. The spaces I'm in spaces like this all the time because of the work that I even forget that that's a thing sometimes. And you're right. That is one of the biggest things. One member created a reel very recently, and she just said, the one thing I love about this space is that I get to be myself.
Yeah.
And it touched me so much. And there's the aspect of code switching, but there's the aspect of also just showing up. As Black women also, there's many layers of how we're expected to be. You have to look this way, you have to be this, you have to be that. If you're not this, if you wear too much makeup, you're judged. If you don't wear makeup, you're judged. If you don't do this, you're judged. If you do that, you're judged. If you're like this, so just finding a space where there are different people in the space, all showing up in their authentic selves. Some wear makeup, some don't wear makeup. Some dress this way, some don't dress this. Everybody just expressing their own style.
Yeah.
I think for me, I love that. I love that. I love the how flamboyant the canvas is.
I love that description.
Yeah. Yeah.
I really love that description because like it's
Mm.
because we all need that. Like, I mean, I am like I have a group of friends where we meet every once a month. We just go sit down and have coffee and just chat, just talk, and
Yeah.
just sit down and just have coffee and talk. We call it like the thought place, like just like a thought space where you go and you just be yourself. Because
It's very healing, so therapeutic.
Yeah. We chat about everything and anything. Just talk and talk and talk. And then everybody goes home, back to their lives again.
That's nice. That's a blessing. Not many. I don't get to hear many men say they have that, actually.
Yeah, I actually had to start trying to build. I built it myself because I'm like, yeah, it's not a thing. I mean, we guys, we like to pretend that we're the strongest. We are Spartans.
But I guess also, being an immigrant, especially, I think for guys, for women, it's a bit easier to make new friends. For guys, you have the buddies you grew up with, and those you don't really change friends as much.
Yeah, we don't change.
I see it with my husband, where he's had the same friends from high school. Those are his buddies he chats with online, and he's now made friends over time here. That he, but I can see, it's taken time.
Yeah,
it's not the same like with us ladies.
It takes time. Gosh, like it takes work because I don't know, man. Like, I mean, they say guys make friends easily, but what they don't say is that as you grow older, it gets harder. Because it's not hard because you guys can't make friends easily, but it's just because you're just caught up in so much that you're like, okay, maybe you make friends where you play soccer. Okay, then you have to do that. But then you have to build trust because friendship is not just to show up and become friends.
Right.
And then you're dealing with all the ton of things you're dealing as an immigrant. So everything just mashes up into something that it's pretty hard to understand.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the beauty about when African women talk space as well. I always tell people when I call them to, the applications come in and we always give a call. And I always say, this is the one space that is driven by yourself. And in this space, there's plenty opportunity to network and connect with people. But how deep you get is your decision. I love the fact that, I get to meet so many different people, but it gives me the space and time to literally watch people over time before I can say, you know what, now we can go to another level of our relationship.
Oh, that's a privilege, honestly. That space to there's this theory about how teams form where you guys form, then I think you norm, then you storm, then you it's
norming, storming, the phases of
team building, and like that's what it really is, because then everyone is forming, but after a while, then because there's that safe space, you can start to see the people that are your people. Because the truth is that I always say to my kids that my kids be like, you have a lot of friends. I'm like, no, daddy has a lot of pals, acquaintances, then a few friends. People have to graduate from being an acquaintance to becoming your friend. You have to kind of go through that stage. And that's what that space allows you. It gives you that privilege to, you don't have to hurry through the process. You just watch each other and then we'll decide. The time will tell.
And that's why I always encourage people to share their Instagram handles, to share so people can observe and see and, share your work and as you chat and then come into a space and just take your time, because we hurt each other. The biggest hurt that we have with one another is expectation. We have this huge expectation of one another. And that's where hurt comes from, right? It's like, oh, but I expect you to do this, and so this is the one space that we are the expectation, because we've set out the boundaries of what we will provide for you. So we set that expectation, and then the rest you just get to know people around you.
Well done.
It's taken, it's evolved on its own. I remember I spoke to one of the founding members. She's giving me a hard time. She's like, really? You haven't done this, you haven't done this. And I'm like, some of these things take time to evolve. It's not something that can be grown over time. And I'm
Oh yeah.
very grateful to all the members who've been there from the beginning as we were tweaking and retweaking and we're still doing that. I don't know if you got an opportunity to see that we've just gotten our first new space. Yeah, we've gotten a big space that allows us to have a podcast room, a breakout rooms.
Oh,
Like
that's
it's
so
big. Like,
cool. When are you setting it
yeah.
up?
Yeah, we're setting it up. We're in the process. We'll be ready very soon, and then we'll probably invite you to come down for our grand opening.
Oh yeah, I will. I will definitely
Yeah.
come. Okay, well that's for after the podcast. Well, when we're
Yeah.
done recording, we'll talk about that.
Yeah. So so that's the space we're very excited for, because then it bridges all these gaps, and it now gives us that space. Like, how you talked about meeting your homeboys on just to have a coffee. People will be able to do that, because now I think our membership has grown to almost like 110 women, and it keeps growing. I keep getting applications for people wanting to join, but now we have spaces where the different groups can actually get to know one another. Because the one thing with Women Talk, it's that one space that is for all Black women. So we're from all different countries, different age groups. Our lived experiences are so varied.
Yeah.
And I think that's one thing that I really want to push hard this year, is to make people aware that being Black in Canada is not one thing. We are so different, because we come from different countries, we're different generations, so our lived experiences are different. Different generations dealt with colonialism at different stages, so we express ourselves differently. We express culture differently. Our generation is a bit different on how we express culture compared to our elders, and all those things. And then it's also working with our elders so that we can have that knowledge share, so we can at least learn and be able to pass down some of these things as well, and continue in that identity of who we are as a people. So it's I'm really excited about this space.
This is a good place to end this, because that is amazing news.
Yeah.
But thank you so much. Honestly, thank you for coming on the pod. Thank you for sharing your story. And honestly, keep doing that stuff. Keep doing it. Because you never know where it's gonna go to. But for what it's achieved already,
Thank you so much. Thank you for celebrating us. Thank you for just amplifying our work. I think the biggest thing for all Black women is we need allies, allies like yourself. I remember one thing that stuck with me is just the way you celebrate your mother and who she was to you. And I think for me, it's just knowing that we are equally safe with those who are with us on this journey, navigating our lives here in Canada, as Black mothers, as Black women, Black professionals, as also the keepers and knowledge keepers of our cultures and who we are as a people in our own right. And so also, we published a magazine last year, and our second edition is going to be coming out now here in March on International Women's Day.
Woohoo!
And so, just making sure that, people read the magazine and learn more about how to support Black women living in Canada and what our lived experiences are. So, yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you. I don't think I should add anything else to what she said, right? What do y'all think? Just go join them, support them. As always, thank you. Please sign up, subscribe, share. We're on YouTube, Substack, everywhere you find your podcast. And if you know some other powerful African lady I should talk to, send them our way. Have a beautiful day.